Everyone, in just a second, I'm going to be introducing author KRISTINA McMORRIS, and we're going to be talking about this brand new book called Sold on a Monday. It is her newest one, and I cannot wait to talk to her. This was an amazing book, and you know what? She doesn't know this yet because she's in Oregon, but I am in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and this book is centered so much around this part of Pennsylvania, so I can't wait to talk to her about that. So everyone, here is KRISTINA. Hi, everyone. I am so excited because I'm speaking with author KRISTINA McMORRIS, and we are talking about her brand new book. She has it right there, Sold on a Monday.
How about that? Product placement right there, baby.
Yay! I love it. What did you think of this cover when you got this?
Oh my gosh. Do I really need to tell you? Like, is it just self-explanatory? This was not the original cover, actually the first choice that I was sent by the publisher. And there was a bit more happiness to it and something else going on with kids and railroad tracks. And I thought, I don't think that, and they were dressed with wealthy clothes on. And I thought, it's not really where we're going with the story. So they came back. Thankfully, they were wonderful. And they came back with this and said, what do you think of this? I said, yes. That's the one. It just encapsulates the feel of the book so much.
Oh
so
my gosh.
I'm so grateful. Yeah.
And the title, was that your working title or did that come up later?
No, it was, oh my gosh, it was very, very last minute. So it was right when we were at the deadline of we've got to come up with a title for this. And we did it before the image was done. But it was originally I had come up with a working title that I knew wasn't going to stick. But I had The Creation of Truth was my original title, which since you've read the book, you know how that applies in so many ways, but it doesn't have the emotional pull to it. And I agreed with that. I said, I knew it wasn't going to stick and I was okay with that. I said, as long as you give me something better, I'm happy. So we brainstormed for months. And finally, my editor was very smart. She came back and I think it was just like the day before I'd actually thought of this title, something close. Mm-hmm. It was Sold on a Tuesday. And because there was a line that I had played with within an early prologue that she and I kind of just both happened to pull from, that we didn't plan it. And I didn't mention it to her because I thought, oh, she'll probably hate it. And she came back and said, what about if we go a completely different direction, say Sold on a Monday? And I went, yes. Oh, I'm like, oh, Monday's even better than Tuesday. Yes. So that's what happened.
Well, you don't know this, but I am calling you from Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Oh, you are? No way! Oh, what a great tie-in for people that haven't read the book. It's Allentown is in the story, because I've got parents that are coal mining family in it, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, and it was so crazy because when I started reading it, and you kind of bring it up a little bit in the beginning, but as the story goes, it's like different areas around here that, I mean, I've grew up here. I was born here. I grew up here. And so I was like, oh my gosh, wait till I get to tell her that I know exactly what she was talking about. I know every area. And, actually, you gave me a lot of, I started asking a lot of questions of people around me because there were things I didn't know about Hazleton and, different areas that you bring up. So, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And I was like, she had to have known this area a little bit because you bring up Bethlehem and Bethlehem Steel. And of course, like you said, the coal mining area. I mean, it's not right here, but there's surrounding, coal mining areas. So, and it was fun because it starts in 1931. My grandparents grew up here. Like my entire family grew up here. So it's like, I tried to kind of envision, what they went through. And so it was very fun for me.
That's so nice to hear. Yeah, I actually lived outside of Philly for a time with my husband, and so that's part of the reason why I chose it, because I really enjoyed being in the city, and the history is just so rich there. And it was just such an interesting dichotomy that you have this city that is just so interesting with the buildings and the steel and the textile city of the country, and then you drive not very far, a half hour, and you are out in the farmlands that just go on for so long, and then you make a turn and you're in the coal mining areas, and I just love that. I think it's just so interesting.
Yeah, my grandmother worked in textile for a long time, so
yeah,
that. And, I don't know. Anyway, it was fun. A lot of fun. So, am I getting a reverb on? Do you hear that?
No, you're good on my side.
Okay, good. So anyway, so that was fun. And then I wanted to tell you some, when I was growing up, and I grew up in Emmaus, which, you probably didn't hear of, but it's a really tiny city outside of Allentown. Okay. One main street, right? Well, my next door neighbor her family moves in from Hazleton, and they open up this Italian restaurant. Like, that our area is not Italian at all. We're all Pennsylvania Dutch, and, but they open up this Italian restaurant, and her dad ends up being in the mob. Like, we find out her dad gets arrested for stealing from the jewel shop, the only little teeny tiny jewel shop on our street.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So talk about, like, your life was basically in my book.
I know. And I was like, I can't wait to tell you this, because back then we were like all confused. Like, we were like, what? Like, we're in this tiny, tiny town. Like, we were just and they, he got arrested and their family moved, and, but, when they say they came from Hazleton and it's a big Italian family and they open like, none of that, seemed weird for us, but when I'm reading your book, I'm like, it is so weird. Okay. Like, we didn't think it was weird, but it was like,
That's funny.
Yeah. So I know, like, now you understand.
And you didn't think, oh, this isn't far-fetched at all. Like, this is totally so realistic. All of it. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? So anyway, I just had to tell you. I couldn't wait. Yeah. Like, last night, I'm like, I cannot wait to tell her this. But
that's so funny. That's great.
So I want you to tell everybody, like, in a nutshell, like, give us, and then I kind of know where to ask questions, because I never want to give away anything. We don't give away anything. Yeah. We want everybody to read it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's kind of tricky with this story, as you know, to give away just enough that people hopefully are interested and see where it's going without giving away too much. So, in a nutshell, that, like you said, the story is about a reporter in rural Pennsylvania and Philly that ends up finding two kids on a farmhouse porch next to a sign that says "2 children for sale," and he's so taken aback by the scene that he snaps a photo of it. And yet it isn't meant for publication. It leads to his big break with the help of a colleague, also at the paper, a female colleague, that she also doesn't mean any harm by it. And yet their careers take off. The reporter, his career skyrockets, and only later does he find out it has devastating consequences for everyone in the photograph.
And, I love this story. So, like I said, the time period, I loved reading about that time period, especially think about it, like, in this world, like, I was a real big newspaper. In our area, we had one newspaper. Everybody loved it. And the history behind the newspaper. And then look where we are now. That newspaper barely exists. There's barely. So I loved reading about the report. I mean, that was huge back then. Like that industry, right? I mean, wasn't that at the heyday of, like, newspaper world?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. In the 1930s, and that's when you had, like, from reading the book, all the little tidbits I gave of what was happening in the news at that time. World War II had not yet happened, and yet there was a lot of activity with the youth, Hitlerites that were marching through Europe at the time, and just all kinds of things happening that were fascinating, but also mobsters and, Al Capone and these in Philly, you got Mickey Duffy and all these other mobsters that I wasn't familiar with because I hadn't heard of since I knew the New York ones more, and got to study that about Philly and who the big names were in that time. So these guys were, in the paper on a daily basis, and it was so interesting to go to step into a newsroom in my mind after reading so many memoirs and about the clickety clack of the typewriters going nonstop, because you've got all the Crown Royals and the Crown Royal, that's a drink here. It's early, I'm tired. It's been a long week. You know where I'm going. Okay, so the Royal typewriters, then they drink Crown Royal after the day. So the hunt and peck, the two fingers, and the teletype coming through in the wire, and the hustle and bustle of copy boys that are running around, taking your copy down to the basement for it to run, and I love that hustle and bustle activity.
I know, because really, like, we don't wait for a newspaper for news. Like,
right.
Like, people waited for that newspaper, and
yes.
Just, like, how, also I loved how you put in how the newspaper was kind of manipulated by the mob. Like, they were trying to, like, be friends because they wanted to make sure their image was coming out good. And which is crazy. Like, they were so worried about their image, and, like, how the news could, like, manipulate that with people, so they're like, oh, look at how good they are. They're giving money to like poor people.
Right? Like Al Capone, isn't that the craziest
Yeah.
story? You come across that, and as you know, the story goes that Al Capone had kind of got a bad rap a bit, as you can imagine, after the Valentine's Day massacre,
Yeah.
and started being seen by the public as not just maybe a cool celebrity, mobster, but instead as a killer, and which of course he was, and
Right.
so he cared about the public perception, which I thought was so interesting because these, the mobsters, of course, were ruthless and brutal, but above all, when they to be that successful, they were businessmen,
Right.
and so they cared about what people thought, and so he opened some bread lines and soup kitchens and trying to help people, think that, like, kind of put them back in their hearts, I guess, a bit more.
Oh, I love that. And I love how you ended the last. I always love the last line of the first chapter, because I always think it's so important, because there's so many books out there, and it gets you to that chapter 2. Because a lot of people put down after chapter 1. They're like, I'll read something else. So to me, that's always my grab line right there. And I go back. After I get done reading it, I go back to see what that line was, and I'll tell you what yours was. In case you forgot.
Yeah.
It started with a picture.
Yes.
And I thought, oh my gosh, because I always think, isn't that a great last line too?
Yeah, right. I mean, it really, because as you know, the prologue starts that way, and it leads you into sort of it gives you a sneak preview of a climax of the story, and then it backs up and it lets you live the journey that got you there into the very beginning, the characters there. And I'm such a fan. I'm such a movie buff, and I am such a fan of storytelling in so many forms, including film. And that's where my storytelling love started. And so I love those films that they show the climax in the beginning, and then you can see something very intense is about to happen, and then they stop and say 6 weeks earlier, and you think, how did we get there? And you wonder, how do these pieces all fit together and interweave? And I just love that. So this story and my last one, The Edge of Loss, did the same thing, because I thought it fit the stories well.
Yeah, and I like I said, when I read that as the last line of your book, to me that was, and then I was like, oh my gosh, it's like the last line of the first chapter, but it's the last line. It's a perfect line for like the end of the book, and I love when it kind of wraps it up like that. It was perfect. So I just had to tell you that I was like, it like gave me goosebumps when I read it then.
I love that. Thank you. I would think that it's I would hope that readers sometimes, finish the book and then go back and read that, because then and as you know, I weave that scene back in toward the end of the book, and then you see how it really related to everything that they're talking about.
Yes. And we were talking, I forgot to tell you this before we started taping, but my granddaughter that was just born is named Lillian.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I love that name so much. It's such a beautiful name. That's great. And that, as you know, that's the character in the book. Yeah.
I love that. And I haven't called her Lily yet. I know we will. I know people will. But I just love like Lily. I love older names. Like I love that. So that was another fun thing when I'm reading it. I was like, oh, this is so perfect right now. But
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it did fit your life, doesn't it? The whole book, from start to finish.
It was crazy, but I just love this story so much. I love the ending, and everybody, you're gonna love the ending. I love when it all ties up, and it was such a fun book to read, not just because I'm living in the area where the book takes place, but I mean, I read so much hype about it, and it's because it's that good. So I feel so blessed to have been able to read it. And this is like your 5th novel since 2011. So that's crazy.
Yes. Yeah. I'm thinking back going, oh gosh, that's not that long ago, is it? Oh, it feels like a lot longer, because there's been so many things happening in between. But yes, so my first novel came out in 2011, The Letters from Home, and that was inspired by my grandparents' World War II courtship letters. So that was really like a love letter to my grandparents and to their generation. It was, in essence, it was a Cyrano de Bergerac story set during World War II. So I always describe it as the Notebook meets Saving Private Ryan. And that has a nice place in my heart, because it was a real labor of love that I wrote that, and never intended to write another book. That was going to be it. I thought that I was going to write it for my kids, and maybe they'd like it and pass it to their kids. And I thought, I'll make copies at Kinko's, and And then I thought, well, I'll see what I can do with it. Maybe somebody will want to publish this. And then I started really learning more about the craft and trying to make it a better book and reaching out to other authors and learning a lot and going to conferences and just kind of digging in, and then realizing what I needed to do to actually sell this book, and got an agent and luckily sold it. But then it sold on a 2-book contract, and I had planned to write one published book, let alone 2. So I was in quite a pickle, and went, oh gosh, now I have to come up with something else. So I did. So I ended up, every story since then has been inspired by some piece of history that I'm stunned by when I come across it. And I think, how do people not know this? I should have known this a long time ago. And so that ends up inspiring the book.
That's why I love historical fiction so much.
Yes, me too. Me too. I call it literary Advil. That you get a sugar coating of a story on the outside, and hopefully you don't realize how much good stuff in history and facts you're getting when it's well researched until the story is over. And hopefully you can look back and think, wow, I actually learned a lot too.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I felt. And I'm such a fan now. I'm going back to read your other ones because I love your writing so much. But I know this week has been crazy, but are you working on something else?
I was going to. Months ago, my editor and I have met up for some different things, promotional situations, and we brainstormed ideas. I had one specifically I was very excited about, but we both knew there was so much coming up with promotion that she absolutely has been wonderful supporting me and saying, I said, you know what, I don't know how fast I'm going to really get to this. And she said, don't worry, promote. And I'm like, that's the best thing you could have told me, because it relieves that pressure, since I also, am a full-time mom of two boys and have a husband. And I thought, oh gosh, how am I going to juggle that full-time job and promotion and a new book? Is really like full-time jobs. So what's been nice is they've allowed me to put it on the side for now, and we've all been really excited. I have a 50-stop tour, which is all kinds of insanity coming up. I have just a few days here right now to relax before event number 4 takes off, and then I go until first week of December.
Well, that's awesome to let everybody know so they can look for you, because I know that is like, it's huge. And it's so hard to be writing. Like, how could you even be focusing if you have to be like out there and,
in hotel room and
in hotel rooms. Yeah, that's just crazy. Yeah. But I, like I said, I feel so blessed because I got to read this. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. So I can't wait till your next one. But in the meantime, I'm just going to go back and read the others. So you can take your time.
That's nice. You keep yourself busy with those for a while. That'll buy you a little more time. I will tell you that with The Edge of Loss, my last book before this, which is one of my favorites. You're not supposed to pick a favorite child, but it is actually one of my favorites because it had so many elements in there that I love, that I think you'll love too. It's got the mobsters and speakeasies, and it's 1930s as well. I usually would write World War II in all different aspects, and that was the first one that I joke, I spread my wings so far. I went 10 years back. So went into the 30s, Great Depression time. But it was because it was inspired by the fact that they were kids who grew up on Alcatraz Island, right next door to the likes of Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, because they were children of the prison staff. And when I found that out, I thought, oh, wow, how did I not know this? Of course, just like I said. Yes. So there's a little girl who goes missing, and a convicted bank robber is the only one who knows where she is, and he's keeping that secret for a very specific reason. And the story backs up, and you follow an Irish immigrant tale through all kinds of interesting things with Dublin pubs and Ellis Island and Irish immigrants and Italian immigrants and vaudeville, and just so many fun things in that story. And so actually you'll recognize a couple familiar characters from Sold on a Monday in that one. And so they stand alone, but they make some nice cameos.
Well, you know what? When you get back from that little tour, we'll have to talk again.
I know, that would be so fun. I'd love to talk to you about that one.
Okay, then we'll do that, because I'll start reading them a while. You go out on book tour, and then we'll come back.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm so happy for you. Like I said, I've seen this book everywhere, and I am thrilled for you. And show that to everybody one more time.
Yeah, I will.
All of Kristina's links underneath here, and she has agreed to give away a copy tonight on Instagram. So, just head over there and you can win a copy of this book. And thank you so much for taking time for me. It means the world to me.
Thanks for having me. And I will mention one last thing because I don't think I've told you this. This is so much fun. Like you said, if they want to know about my tour, because I will be all over the place,
Yes.
especially in the South and the East Coast and Texas and all, just it's everywhere. It's like 14 states. So if they go on my website at KRISTINAMcMORRIS.com, Christina with a K, then I have my whole schedule there. But what I also have for a short time is I'm giving away these really fun party packs for book clubs within the US. So if they sign up to read the book no later than the end of February, then they will get this free party pack, and it has 1930s candies in it and wine charms because we're celebrating the end of Prohibition, and so
Yes.
they're themed with the book, and so anyway, all kinds of fun things there.
Oh, that's awesome. And I'm going to check it out to see how close you're coming here.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know. I am going to make it to. We're talking about Pennsylvania, not yet, but I think in the spring. So I really want to make it there.
Yeah. Because it would be fun for everybody here, you know?
Yes.
So,
I know. Indiana too, because I used to live. My husband got his master's at Notre Dame, so I was
really
right there in Indiana quite a bit, and so right all around that area, and went to Chicago a lot, and so it would be fun to make it back.
yes. Well, thank you so much. You have a great weekend, and we will talk soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.
Back, everyone. Wasn't she awesome? Oh my gosh, I loved her. I loved this book so much. Like I said, it was right here, and I love being able to talk about that with her. But anyway, but even more than that is that this is an amazing book, and I highly suggest you go buy it. I'm going to put the Amazon link down here. It's available now, and like I said, I'm going to be giving away a copy over on my Instagram account tonight. So thank you so much for watching.